You are listening to Viewpoints from PlaceCloud. Cultural researchers tell stories of places from around the world. For the full multimedia experience and to support the creators you enjoy, visit placecloud.io.
We are standing outside the Church of St Olave, Hart Street, a church that was known to Charles Dickens as Saint Ghastly Grim on account of the impaled stone skulls that adorn the portal to the graveyard. In a sketch of 1860, later published in The Uncommercial Traveller, Dickens wrote that he thought these skulls most effective, having the air of a public execution and seeming, as the lightning flashed, to wink and grin with the pain of the spikes. The gateway dates to the 17th century, but the origins of the church are much older. St Olave Hart Street is, in fact, one of the only medieval churches in the City of London to have survived the Great Fire of 1666, and it is famous as the burial place of the 17th century diarist Samuel Pepys and his wife. Pepys, in fact, was instrumental in the action taken to save the church from the flames. Now, the earliest reference to the church dates to the mid-13th century, when the church was rebuilt in stone, replacing what had probably been a timber building. It was rebuilt again in the 15th century and heavily modified thereafter. The brick tower, for example, dates to the 18th century. The dedication to the Scandinavian St Olaf, however, is at least as old as the 13th century rebuilding and possibly as much as 2 centuries older. The cult of St Olaf appeared in England in the 1030s, not long after his death. Olaf, or Olaf Haraldsson, King of Norway as he was known during his lifetime, had died fighting against Norwegians loyal to the cause of King Canute, who at the time was King of England and Denmark. He was cut down at the Battle of Stiklestad in Norway in 1030, and almost immediately afterwards, miracles associated with his corpse began to be reported. Olaf's reinvention as a Christian martyr began straight away, despite a legacy of pretty horrible brutality directed towards the Norwegian people when he was alive. A church was raised where he died to house his remains, and that church today is Nidaros Cathedral in Trondheim. Stories of this new saintly Olaf appeared in England very soon after his death, with the return from Norway of Bishop Grimkel, an English priest who had served as Olaf's bishop. It was his influence that apparently led to the promotion of St Olaf in this country, and particularly in London, where half a dozen churches were dedicated to his memory. Now, it's actually a bit odd that Olaf was taken up with such enthusiasm here. His great enemy Canute remained King of England until 1035, and Canute's sons were kings of England until 1042. Olaf may also have been responsible for pulling down London Bridge. But whatever the reasons for his popularity in London, Olaf certainly left his mark, not just on Hart Street, but also at London churches on Broad Street, Silver Street, Old Jewry, Bread Street, and Tooley Street in Southwark. During the Second World War, St Olave Hart Street was used as a place of worship by the exiled Norwegian King Haakon VII, until it was struck by a German bomb in 1941. The church was reconstructed in the early 50s, and if you look, it is actually pretty obvious from the outside which parts of the 15th century masonry survived and which bits are more recent. When the church was finally rededicated in 1954, King Haakon returned to London to take part in the service. He brought with him the Bishop of Trondheim and a fragment of stone from the tomb of St Olaf at Nidaros Cathedral. This fragment was laid in the floor of the newly restored church, forging a new link in a 900-year-old chain of association.